Hello everyone, and welcome to the stream. This is a very, epic music for just doing the stream introduction, but it's good music at least. So I've been pretty hard at work on setting up a bunch of different legacy characters. I'm actually on the wrong account for them. Let me check real quick which account I have to use. I'm at the point of where I have 3 to 4 different accounts that I have to use to keep track of my stuff, because I don't have enough Evo type space. I have an account for the old tactics, an account for the mine trials, an account for the new tactics, and then an account for no tactics.
Welcome to the Ace Mine training system.
So yeah, I've been putting together a bunch of legacy characters and theory crafting some new builds. Some I have tested already, and some I haven't tested yet. So let's start out with a build that I have tested and is extremely flashy. I'll probably just name this build like Armageddon or something, because that's the most apt way I can think of to describe it. I don't think I'll be needing shockwave damage for this one, so we'll just throw in some extra healing. And then we'll go with a normal run for this build. This build is extremely strong for clearing out the normal rooms, but it's not going to do anything in terms of boss DPS, so I wouldn't be real thrilled about taking it into Transcendence. But it's still something that's just very hilarious to show off. Now I gotta try and find the actual tactics for it, too. Surely I set up the tactics right. Or did I just try it in the middle of a run? I don't know if I actually set up the second legacy character that's required for this. But we can put it together mid-run, too. That's not that big of a deal. Yeah, I guess I just never set up the second legacy character for it. I just tested if the build itself would work. So what we're gonna do is gonna go attack Rend with Execution Storm, and then Rending Impact with Fatal Rend. So the Rend will be fully upgraded to begin with, and then Execution Storm creates a Blade Storm every time you kill an enemy with Rend's Execute. I don't think Execution Storm on its own is that good, but maybe combined with some of the other red effects, it could be decent. Like, the red effect we're going to put it with in this build is going to just be absolutely hilarious once we get it. The main problem with these blades that get spawned is that they just don't last very long. You can have a lot of them on screen at once, but with how short they last, they don't end up doing a whole lot. However, with a certain red effect, that won't be a problem at all anymore. The other main problem with this red effect is that it just won't do anything for you during boss fights, really. You can get a couple extra enemy spawns through, like, Entropy, but that's not enough to really make it worth it. I've always had a distaste for tactics that don't contribute to boss fights, because AoE damage isn't something that you are really required in this game enough to be worth dropping boss damage for. Especially when it comes to stuff like Transcendence mode, where bosses are getting to the point of where they have 300,000 HP or above. But now we're going to go for Legacy of Fire. I think actually I might have set up the tactics this way kind of on purpose too, because I can get to the red effect pretty easily. I think I just need... No, actually I don't. I need Legacy Ring of Fire, and I'm gonna need to max this out to get Storm of... and then I'll get Storms of Skills and Storm Ring of Fire. I'm not gonna spoil it yet, but if you know what those red tactics are, you might be able to predict what's going to happen. Having a way to filter the legacies would be very nice, I agree with you. If not just having like a... I suggested they just add a search bar, but I get that that's pretty complicated. But having a way to sort them by tactics, or by elements, would be nice. Though the only problem with that is... what if you have a legacy character that has two different elements on it? How does it sort that? Because you could take two different, completely different things. Especially if you're playing the game normally and not specifically trying to set up legacy characters, you end up with a lot of random tactics put together. Which is something they kind of improved with the Transcendence buffs to how many rerolls you get. But Transcendence is a very late game thing. So I wish they would have like tweaked the system itself instead of just making it an end-game thing. But I am happy that they at least did buff Transcendence to the point of where it's easy to farm legacy characters in now. Okay, so now I need to pick up the Blade Storms as well. I don't care about upgrading these as much as I care about getting to the red tactics, so I mostly want fire elements. But another thing you could maybe try doing with this setup is taking Bloodthirsty Storm instead of the one that I'm taking. That would give the Blade Storms extra damage. But again, there's still the same problem where the Blade Storms being spawned by the Rend Execute can't really activate in boss fights. And this red effect has a cooldown on it, so it's not as good as it sounds, even for stuff like if you're spamming the skill version of it out constantly. All of the bloodthirsty effects just aren't nearly as strong as they seem like they would be, unless they buff them in the tactics patch. Pulling Storm might be interesting to go with this build. I've been liking the Seeking Storms for it. I'm gonna try out the Pulling Storms, though, just to see how they look. It's not something I've used too often. Yeah, this is a fire build I did show in the Discord. It's probably the one you're thinking of. For the people that haven't seen it, they're gonna be in for quite a surprise once it gets put together. There's a couple builds today that I didn't quite get around to making legacy characters. I was supposed to be doing that this morning, or earlier today rather, because it's 2 PM for me right now. But the hour that I was supposed to be putting together more legacy characters, I got distracted trying to figure out how fall damage works instead. Oops. Oh, we're not on... I usually don't take shops until the room directly before the boss fight, because that shop is always guaranteed. I just wasn't paying enough attention. That's a stream moment. I wonder which one is more damage efficient. I'd have to, like, actually do the damage calculations. I think it's almost always more efficient just to upgrade the base tactic, rather than getting the percent increases on a lot of these things. Like where the Rings of Fire deal an extra percentage of damage. I think it's almost always better to upgrade the base first. I don't think that's ever something that will really matter a whole lot, though. Unless tactics get really buffed in some kind of way. Another one of the problems with a tactic like this is that a lot of times in this game, if you're playing quote-unquote efficiently, in terms of room clearing, you're grouping enemies together before killing them. So, like, right there was a perfect example. I killed all the enemies at the same time, and the blade rings did absolutely nothing, because all the enemies are already dead. They can be good for rooms where enemies respawn quickly on top of each other, especially rooms with that, they give you like a kill limit or a time limit to survive. That type of room is where this type of thing can shine the most. The red effect that I'm going for will also kind of help with that issue as well. A lot of the problems with some of the tactics in this game aren't even... There are definitely problems with tactics that are number-based, but a lot of the things are more mechanical-based, where things just don't work out in typical gameplay. But overall, I think this tactics update did help a lot already. Especially in terms of Fire and Toxin, which are the two tactic trees that were struggling the most, in my opinion. Those two both have new builds now that make them worth running in certain cases. This build I'm doing right here with the Fire is more of a very situational thing, where it has very high room clearing but bad boss damage, but there's another Fire build that I put together that's a more well-rounded one, that's good at both, and the DPS of it is pretty decent. And then it's the same thing for Toxin. Toxin has two builds that I found so far that actually feel worth running now. I don't think the Toxin builds are, like, real high tier, but they're definitely good enough. Oh, that huge damage number right now is from Rend Execute. It could also be from Icy's passive, if you're playing Icy or have her as a legacy character, where she can execute mechanical enemies, which also works for that boss fight that I just fought, by the way, which is pretty funny. She can actually execute that boss because he's a mechanical unit. She also deals bonus damage to him. But anyways, what's causing the damage numbers right now is Fatal Rend. Attacking a enemy with Rend and less than 20% of their HP will instantly kill them. And then the way that it shows that kill damage is just by spitting out an extremely high damage number. That way the execute is actually noticeable on a gameplay level. Welcome to the stream, everyone, by the way. I forgot to say that for people that have came in so far. This could be nice to have. The only problem is remembering I actually have the debuff and not killing myself before I get the actual buff. Probably not a good idea for me to do with my muscle memory. Especially because I use Lambda skills pretty often. I want the buff that gives me MP back based on, like, combo count, because I've been trying to figure out how that one works, but I keep getting distracted. Or, last time I was trying to figure it out, I was trying to figure out in the middle of the video, so I didn't really get a chance to look at it too closely. I think the way that it works is that it only gives you the MP back as soon as your combo drops, and then once your combo drops, it gives you MP based on what your combo counter was. So I don't think it's nearly as good as what I wanted it to be. Which I also think is kind of fair, because it's like, I think it's 75 MP for every 60 combos you deal or something like that. And dealing a 60 combo is not that hard. A lot of characters multi-hit pretty heavily on their own, and then even if you don't multi-hit heavily, a lot of the tactics will multi-hit themselves, and by the time you have tactics stacked up at the late game, you would probably just have nearly infinite mana if it gave you the mana immediately. One of the reasons I picked Lambda for this build is that her dash attacks apply the Rend very quickly, so it's easy to always get the executes, and then she can also proc the skill Bladestorm pretty easily, since her main skill only takes 30 MP for every time you cast it. You can just cast it once for an easy way to proc skill tactics. And then also, I would much rather put this build on Lambda since it's not dealing any boss damage. I wouldn't want to try a character like Hazama or Jin without having boss damage from tactics. But characters like Lambda and Kokonoe don't have any issues with that. So now we just need one more fire space, and then we'll get to see the actual build. Okay, here we go. I'm not going to explain it yet. I'm going to show it off first. But be ready for a drastically different game now. And now we have created Armageddon. I'll explain how the build works after this room finishes. But basically, for the rest of the run, anytime we go into a normal enemy room, the entire screen is just going to explode like this. It's a very fun build to look at. Yep, it's time for war crimes. So the first threat effect makes it where executing an enemy with Rend creates a temporary blade storm at their location. And then I can apply the Rend very easily just by doing Lambda's dash attacks with the potential where her actual dashes themselves deal damage. They deal high multi-hit, so they apply Rend basically instantly. And then Storm Ring of Fire makes it where Blade Storm spawns with its own Ring of Fire. So normally you'd just be using this occasionally with the Blade Storms that are on a cooldown, but with the Execution Storm, the Ring of Fires also apply to every single one that gets spawned this way. And this spawns every time I kill an enemy. So there's just an endless amount of Rings of Fire on the screen. Also, the Rings of Fire that explode out of the Blade Storms have a significantly higher attack range than the regular ones. So they hit basically the full screen at once. It is quite powerful. And then these also help kind of solve for the issue that I talked about earlier, where enemies would normally just all die in one clump, kind of, and then the Blade Storms don't really hit anything. But since the Rings of Fire are kind of on a delayed timer, they're able to hit after the next group of enemies starts spawning. And then we're also going to go into Burn, because we can make the Ring of Fire deal burn damage as well. If I wanted to make the build do more boss DPS, I would just want to throw in Holy Marks and then Stable Marks to get a lot of DPS that way. But I'm just going to turn it into a full burning build, since I know Lambda can deal enough damage to bosses on her own. So I'll probably be looking for Durable Burn. It's just the best for damage output. Because not only does it increase the duration, it'll also increase the damage. Which the buffs to burn will affect the burn you get this way too, even though it's off of a red effect. That's the case with most red effects. They'll benefit off the upgrades of the main tactic, so burn in this case. They won't scale off of stuff like this, that's just base damage increases, but they will scale off of other effects, like extra duration or extra percentage damage. The Rings of Fire that get spawned by the Blade Ring also get affected by the double Ring of Fire upgrade there. So every Blade Ring I spawn is actually making 2 Rings of Fire instead of just 1. We still don't really have, we have basically no potentials at this point, because shops have not been nice to me, and neither have, space luck. So we don't really have a good way to DPS the boss right now, but Lambda's Lambda. She can have just dash attack upgrades and triple dash and deal damage for some reason. It might be one of the slowest kills I've ever done on Lambda, but it's really not that bad. This will help out a lot, being able to have multiple portals down at the same time. And then the other thing I'm going to be looking for is heavy attack upgrade and her up plus dash input. I always forget what that input's name is. This unfortunately doesn't do anything because it's dash burn, it doesn't have a cooldown to begin with. If I could have found the Covenant that would make my skill have no cooldown, then we'd be able to summon infinite Blade Storms as well. I did that in a video a long time ago, when Covenants first came out. I did it with a similar build to this, actually, where I'd spawned infinite Blade Storms and then had the Storm Ring of Fire on them. I'm not gonna bother with any of these. I probably could have taken the first one there on the left, but I don't like having to deal with a certain damage type not dealing damage. It's just annoying to play around. I'd rather be able to use my character's full kit. Okay, here we go. Here's one of the upgrades we need for Heavy Strike. Heavy Strike doesn't take off until it gets a couple different potentials, but once it does, it becomes extremely powerful. You need that one, you need the up plus skill, or up plus dash input, I mean, in order to get a hidden effect, and then you need the universal enhancement that summons more blades on attacks. Yeah, the flames are very funny to look... Oh, the flames are going to go crazy here, by the way, because so much stuff is just going to be consecutively spawning. Oh, that's actually kind of unfortunate. The flames are just barely not doing enough damage to one-shot things. Otherwise, it would have been a lot faster there. This build is basically like a lightning impulse build, except it's a lot higher range than lightning impulses even would be. Though the main benefit of lightning impulse is that you don't need any red effects for it to actually do the big AoE bursts. And you only need one tactic slot filled. But if you're playing in lower entropies, outside of Transcendence even, and you're playing a character that has high bossing DPS, this is just a... It's a fun build to use, even just for the sake of the novelty of it. And I think that's perfectly fine, to have some builds that, even if they're not as strong, they're either just very flashy, or they're mechanically fun to use. I think a lot of the new pufferfish stuff in the Toxic Tree kind of falls in the same type of thing, where it's not extremely strong, but the pufferfish stuff is so funny to look at that it just feels fun to use. And I think that's something that tactics have kinda lacked for a long time. Tactics have more of just been something you've always taken for the damage increase. So it's good to see them kind of pivoting with some things and adding some more visually stunning effects, or things that are a little bit more mechanical, like the pufferfish being able to lift enemies. I hope they continue to do that when it comes to tactics in the future. This is way too peaceful of music to be going on. Meanwhile, there's just constant explosions in the background. That was probably one of the best stage types to be able to show it off on, where everything spawns right together, and everything spawns quickly because it's a timed stage. Okay, here we go. This is the other upgrade that I was talking about, that if you're going a Heavy Strike build, which I would recommend leveling Heavy Strike on any Lambda run, it's just very, very powerful. And the important thing is that it's not MP reliant like her other skill damage stuff. Oh yeah, that's what I called it. I called it Scorched Earth. I was calling it Armageddon today, but now I remember that I called it Scorched Earth on the Build Crafter. Which I think, yeah, I think either name is pretty apt, but I think I like Scorched Earth a little bit better. Okay, and here's the final part of the Heavy Strike build, is the Corsair Saber. The Corsair Saber is pretty good on its own, honestly. But for the Heavy Strike's sake, you mostly take it for the hidden effect here. It adds a ton of extra hits to the Heavy Strike. So now when we hit the next boss fight, we will not have any issues with DPS at all, even though the tactics aren't really doing any damage in boss fights. And then we'll just pick up Ring of Fire Burn. If anything manages to live through the initial Ring of Fire that goes off, they'll probably die to the burn in 1 or 2 hits. The burn damage is really not anything too significant for the boss fights, but it will help out a little bit as well. Oh, and then I took the shape-shifting upgrade from Ring of Fire just because it has the highest damage multiplier on it. You could take the increased size too, but I don't know if the size actually scales these ones, because they already have their own size on their own, compared to, like, that's what it looks like if I use the actual Legacy Ring of Fire. The ones that are generated on the Bladestorm work a little bit differently than the actual Legacy ones. But they do apply stuff like the burn, and then they also do scale from damage increases. Well, I said we weren't going to have problems with damage output, but then we got the boss that I can't really heavy strike against. Luckily, I do have the ability to stack multiple portals as well, so that will easily deal DPS for me too. The last upgrade we would need for Lambda is optional, but having triple jump helps if we find it. I also don't mind taking the Sword Summoner EX. Sword Summoner EX also scales really well off of having the universal upgrade for more blades. It becomes quite powerful once you have that. Now, I think it's a black market upgrade. We did get it! I've been getting so lucky on getting this on stream with my tactics showcases. So now we'll have an extra 150% tactic damage, which still probably isn't going to help out much for the boss fights, but if anything was going to survive for normal rooms before, it definitely will not now. I've been trying to decide whether I want to go for the black markets and the trials and stuff more often in my commentary videos as well. Because I went for one in the last video with Kokonoe, and I think it made the video a lot more entertaining. My only problem with it is that it makes the runs more misleading if I'm trying to show off like a new tactic build or something like that. Like, it can make the build look significantly stronger than it actually is if I'm sitting on like a 200% damage modifier. And then stuff like that can also easily make it where, like in the Kokonoe video, I think it was close to like a 300% damage increase by the end of the run. And that would make the character just completely outshine the tactics damage. Luckily, with the build I was doing there, it revolved on hitting the shadow pillars and transferring damage through them that way. So buffing my character was actually buffing the tactic build as well. But for other builds, if I'm trying to show off like the tactics actually dealing damage, and the character just ends up one-shotting the boss instead because of a high damage multiplier, then it doesn't give a proper showcase of the tactics themselves. Hello, welcome to the stream. Right now, we're doing a build that I've called Scorched Earth, that basically just covers the entire screen in fire rings every time I kill an enemy. I don't remember. I don't know what floor you're talking about. I just jumped through it by muscle memory. Yeah, you're right about... When I say misleading, I don't know, it's... I do make sure I point out that type of thing. But even so... It's showing off like almost a completely different version of the build in some cases. So even if people understand it's not the true strength of the build, they're still seeing a different version of the build than how it would work normally. And if the main goal is for people to be able to... But I don't know, it's where it gets complicated again. Because there's a learning aspect to both sides as well. It's also good to show off that some of the covenants are extremely broken, so people know to take them when they see them. But then again, like I said, it's not a genuine version of the build either, if the build is getting carried by something else. So it's a complicated thing. Also related to like trials and black markets and stuff, there's also... I've been debating whether to... There's some builds where I would only want to showcase with a specific black market or trial or covenant. So in order to be able to do that type of thing, I would have to use save load in the middle of the run to guarantee it, because I'm not playing through like 10 different runs on commentary just to get unlucky and not have the part that's vital to the build. Which, if I do that type of thing, I'll always specify in the video that this is a build that's very reliant on a specific covenant, and I have used save load in order to get it. But then it's just another case of where, if people are trying to watch the video to learn off of it, it's hard for them to replicate it, unless they also do save load. I'm also just not I'm not a huge fan of builds that are inconsistent like that require a very specific thing to either make or break the build. Which is funny because I'm playing a roguelike game, and that's kind of... The whole nature of roguelikes is that things are supposed to be different every time, and you're supposed to have to adapt a lot of times to what the game gives you. But this game gives you enough options that you can make builds put together very consistently if you have the knowledge for it and you put the time into stuff like legacy characters. But with both cases, it could also just be something that... It's something that moderation would help. Some videos can be without the black markets and trials and covenants altogether. Some videos can just be, if I get lucky, I get it, and it helps the run out. And then some runs can be planned for, like, very specific situations that are utilizing the save load abuse. For getting all potentials, Mai and Noelle are both very low count potentials. Mai has slightly lower. S is also pretty low, but she's higher than Mai and Noelle. And then you want to be at least on 75 entropy, because you get 2 shop refreshes from that. If you can play on Transcendent 75, it's even better, but Transcendent 75 is significantly harder than regular, so whichever one you're comfortable with. And then you want to set up the starting buffs as you want speedrun reward and no damage reward to make more money throughout the run. And then you can also set up the mine crystals for the extra 200 exchange points when killing an enemy, or when killing a boss fight without taking damage. If you can do that at least like once or twice throughout the run, it's still worth it, even if you don't perfect kill every boss. And then, if you have the patience for it, you can also quit out to the menu anytime you get hit by a boss and retry the boss fight. But mostly, you just want to make as much money as possible, you want as many shop refreshes as possible, and then you want to spend money on only potentials and nothing else. None of these options are really worth it. 2 debuffs for a Tactic Ascension is not a good trade at all. We're not on Transcendence, so this boss is fine, I guess. But I would probably want some more max HP before I do any boss fights. I'll have to check sometime and see if they ever fixed Transcendent Floating Mind. His lasers hit so quickly that I'm guessing what happened is it's just the Transcendence buff that enemies get for... Or the buff that Transcendence enemies get is just a flat, like, percentage modifier. So it was scaling with the really high attack speed of the floating mine lasers, and it was able to do like 3k damage in no time at all. You'd basically just be going through the floating mine and get one shot, or lose half your health if you ever got tapped by the lasers, even for a brief amount of time. It was very ridiculous. I've been avoiding the boss fight ever since, so I never checked if they actually fixed it or not. Oh, and then also for getting max potentials, if you're playing a character like Mai or Noelle, and you're playing on high entropy, you shouldn't really need to do it. But if you're playing on low entropy, or you just want to be even more safe, and you don't mind doing the save load exploit, you can save load a Covenant for... there's a Covenant effect that gives you 2 extra shop refreshes for free. That will help significantly in getting more potentials. Especially because not only do you get the extra 2 refreshes, but you don't have to pay for either of them. Like you have to pay for the normal ones. Oh, I didn't win the gamble today. I always go for the for the chance of the highest amount, even if it's the lowest chance to actually get it. I don't care. I'll always take the gamble. Also, if you ever doubted what I've said about Lambda being a broken character, just look at this. I can clear out an entire room just by pressing the jump button if I want to. What the? I've never seen that happen before. Wait a minute. Do we have infinite spawning enemies here? Oh, dang it. So normally when you kill enemies, they give you a small amount of exchange points, but if there's a section where a lot of enemies are spawning, then they don't give you exchange points, and then it could also just be because the room has ended as well. It tells them to stop giving you exchange points. But yeah, apparently we found a infinite enemy spawning glitch here. So we could stay here for as long as we wanted, but it wouldn't do us any good. How do I keep finding just the most random glitches on stream? First I found the Reki phase skip just completely randomly while playing a run, and now I found another glitch for infinitely spawning enemies. Oh, I also found a new glitch for Lambda recently. I don't know if I have the hidden effect needed to do it. Let me see. I think it'd be in the jump potentials. I need the ability to reset my aerial jump limit. I might find that from a shop, and then I can show it off. I don't think there's anything I could go for summoner tactics here that would really be too useful or work with the build. I mean, I could go Blade Rings, but I don't really need them. And I don't think Blade Rings are that good without the poison build for them. I should actually buy HP, like I said I needed to earlier, and not ignore the fact that I only have under 2k HP right now. That's what I'll do. I think 2k HP is probably fine for normal mode. Kind of my rule of thumb lately for Transcendence has been trying to have 3k HP before I go into Susano, or ideally a little bit more than that even. Which kind of, in some regards, doesn't matter at all. The new Transcended Susano can one-shot you regardless of how much HP you have, if you get hit by a specific move. But it still helps reduce, like, chip damage from getting hit by his other moves. Let me look for the jump potential that I need. At least I think that's what I need. Wait, I already have it. I thought it was a hidden effect for some reason, but it's not. It's just part of the jump. It's weird because some characters have jump and dash airborne attack resets on their potentials, and then some characters have them on the hidden effects. And it's even, like, inconsistent between Lambda as a character. You can see that the dash has it on a hidden effect, but the jumping doesn't. Or the jumping is just a basic potential. What do I need for the dash resets? I don't think they matter, but they might. Oh, I need the down plus dash input. Let me check real quick, just to make sure I can... Yeah, this is the... It's kind of hard to tell what's going on here, but... Every time I'm jumping and doing this, I'm actually getting 2 air attacks, and then I'm getting 2 versions of the portals. You can see the portals are dealing 2 hits. And the portals are dealing significant damage. They're dealing almost 2k right now. And then if you had a build like Frost for them, that would make them do more damage. They deal significantly more damage this way. For some reason, if you have air attack resets, and you instantly cancel the jump attack into a jump, it does a second jump and a second air attack immediately. Why this happens, don't ask me, because I don't know. They're just spaghetti coding things from this game. It also lets you... You could always kind of do the jump attacks very low to the ground, but when you're doing it this way, you're getting double jump attacks and you're getting double portals at the same time. You can kill bosses very quickly just by doing this alone. It's a weird glitch, but it's part of the game. I could maybe try to do it against this boss. In order to do it consistently, I need to use 2 hands on the inputs, so I can't dodge or anything. But I can do it like here, when I'm in Jin freeze, or when he's in stun. And you can see that it does a lot of damage. Which is still, it's probably less DPS than I could do with a skill attack build in the heavy strike build. But it's high DPS, it doesn't cost any MP, and I could throw the portal attacks from range if I wanted to be a lot safer to you. It's very, very powerful. Now I know how much people like Reki, and they'll throw a riot. That's what I heard last time. People were saying Reki or riot, so I'll try to go into Reki as often as possible on stream. I don't really fight her in my normal runs unless I'm trying to make a video out of it, just because there's not really any reason to. If we do Transcended runs, then I'm not going to do Reki, because I want to make sure I show off the... new Susano buffs, which I don't know if I'll be doing Transcendence too much today, since I don't know the power of a lot of these builds. But maybe I'll do if I do a Shadow Pillar run today, then I can definitely do that on Transcendence. Not even gonna end up needing the extra max HP that I got. I barely got hit by Reki because she died so quickly. And I don't think Susano's gonna fare much better. so it might have just wasted time going through that whole alpha space. It was more time to show off the flame rings in their element, though, so that's good at least. I don't know if he was already low HP or if he just died really quickly there at the end, but as soon as I started doing the jump glitch, he just immediately died. Yeah, that's doing a lot of DPS. But at the same time, I can do DPS without having to do like actual somewhat difficult inputs just by spamming heavy attack into dash attack. So I think the glitch is fun and it's funny, and it's definitely powerful, but she can also do very powerful things without it. I don't think it's necessarily stronger than what she could do normally. It will be very useful for the Lambda speedrun, though, because in the speedrun, you don't get a lot of potentials compared to normal runs. So you basically need to go all out for a Luminous Slave, and then rely on the extra jumping portals to deal extra damage. So I think in the speedrun, you'd definitely be able to get all the Luminous Slave upgrades, and then the jump portals and the resets pretty easily. I was trying to get the Pulling Storm for that, but I honestly didn't even get to really see them do anything, since everything just gets one-shot instead. Before we start the next run, I'm gonna be right back real quick. Maybe what I'll do, instead of, I'll think about this for next time. Just adding, like, a be right back window at the top here, and then trying to make sure I go AFK next to the screen. That way, if people want to watch the clips in the background, they have something to watch. But anyways, I will be back in a second. Okay, I am back, and apparently my phone just stopped updating the chat for some reason. And my phone is how I keep track of chat messages, since I only have a single monitor. So I missed every message that... The last one I saw was the one asking about how to get max potentials, which was pretty early in the run. So, sorry for missing a lot of messages. So, hello to the people that showed up in that time that I didn't get to welcome. I see we got the real Clown Sneaker in chat. Famous L-Sword player. Someone asked how to play Hibiki. There's a couple different ways that I like to play him. One of the ways is you can take a build like Skill Frost. Skill Frost with Frost Burst is very powerful. And then... let me bring up his potentials here so I can show you. What you want to look for with the Skill Frost build is Oblivion Glaive, where the Oblivion Glaives can orbit around you, because this will make them hit constantly instead of only once. And then you can get the damage upgrade and the other stuff for them as well, but the orbiting is the main priority. And then also you can get Inlos Lace. This one starts off a little weak early, especially if you don't have the Frost and the Frost Burst set up. But once you get Inlos Lace, you get a couple of its upgrades. The Explosion is a pretty big one for increasing their damage output, but you'll also want all of them. Once you get Inlos Lace upgraded, you get Frost and Frost Burst. You will pretty much melt through bosses with it. And then the Oblivion Glaives help out as well, since they're constantly hitting. They deal pretty good damage on their own, they proc Frost Burst pretty heavily. And then another thing you can do is you can put the rotating Oblivion Glaives on, and then go into your SP skill. You want to make sure you're behind the enemy when you're doing this, but it'll cause it to where the enemy is constantly getting hit by the Oblivion Glaives, so they're doing a bunch of different... they're doing a bunch of extra damage during your SP skill. And then you're invincible during this, so you don't have to worry about taking damage. And if you're behind an enemy while doing this, the SP skill and the Oblivion Glaives will actually restore SP, even while the SP skill is still going. So it will... you can have times where you restore like a quarter to half of your SP skill before you even get out of it, if you put the rotating Oblivion Glaives on before it, and you get enough back attack hits during it. Otherwise, for... attack builds aren't quite as good on him, I don't think, but they can be okay. Some of the attack things that are good for him are staggering cuts. When this is fully upgraded, it has pretty much no cooldown if you let the entire attack go off, and then you're invincible during it as well, which is strong. And then I like the Shadow Heal attacks as well. When you get the upgrade where they deal extra damage for summoning clones, they deal some pretty decent damage as well. And they hit enemies in a pretty wide AoE range, which is one of his struggles. You also get dodge frames while doing this, so it's pretty safe to do in boss fights. It's a good way to have additional mobility while also doing damage. Endless Lace in the skill build is probably the highest DPS output overall, but you can have some success with his other builds as well. I think that catches up on everything I missed from chat. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. At some point, maybe I'll get a second monitor, which would be more efficient, but it's really hard for me to justify buying a second monitor right now. Especially over other things I want, like I want to get a better setup for my microphone, so it's not picking up as much of the controller sound as it does now. So let's see. There's another build I want to do on Lambda, but we can probably wait, since I just did a Lambda run already. One of the builds I didn't have time to fully set up either, so a lot of the builds I might actually have to put a lot of things together mid-run. I want to try something with Lightning Orb and Skill Lightning, and then building into the Chain Lightning and Lightning Impulse red effects. So maybe that's what we'll try next. I need a character that can use skills for pretty low MP cost, which Jin would be good for that, for his enhanced attacks, but he has one of the tactics that I need. We go with Kokonoe, we can go with Rachel. I might save Rachel for a pufferfish build, though. This might be... No, I don't know if it's something that Noelle can use. She has the low skill cost, or she's very MP efficient because of her reloads. But I also need to be able to hit a bunch of enemies at once with the skills. So maybe we'll go Ragna. I do need to switch my Mind Crystal first, though. You want to know something else about Rachel with Summon? Or, I mean, Rachel with Pufferfish? Yes, I have the same idea of... I'm just gonna go full Summon build. But Rachel can blow around the enemies while they're in bubbles with Sylphid and her other wind attack. It's actually really funny. I tried it out before. That's something that, I don't remember the name of the commenter, but someone told me that on a comment of one of my videos. I probably would not have thought about that on my own, even though it's pretty obvious that it should work. Anyways, let me stop getting distracted and actually start the run. So this is one of the new red effects, horribly named Lightning Orb. But anyways, let me talk about that some more once I get into the run. When an enemy is inflicted with lightning, a lightning orb is generated that tracks the enemy, dealing 500 damage. So anytime you're inflicting the enemy with lightning impulses and stuff, it'll spawn extra lightning orbs that'll attack for you. This red effect is really janky. It's... a lot of the times... I think part of the issue is that if an enemy gets one-shot by the skill, they don't get inflicted with lightning quick enough, so the lightning orb doesn't spawn. But a lot of times, I hit an enemy and they don't die, but they also just don't spawn the lightning orbs, so I don't know exactly what's going on with it. And then... I guess we could run with this? I don't think I need anything in my legacy slot, because I have skill lightning. I'll need to build into attack lightning and summon lightning orbs. So this... yeah, this shouldn't get in the way of anything. let's see. I'll use my skill here. It spawned one additional orb. It has some kind of a cooldown on it, but even cooldown aside, it feels like it's not spawning the proper amount. Like right there wasn't a good example of it because I hit all the enemies at the same time. But a lot of times when I'm hitting enemies with lightning or with lightning, it just feels like it's not spawning the orbs properly. Like right there, I hit a bunch of enemies with it, and no orb spawned. Which I think is the issue I mentioned before about enemies just getting one shot and not getting the debuff inflicted on them fast enough. It's a pretty interesting red effect overall, but I just think it needs some more consistency to how it works. One thing that's going to be important is fully upgrading the impulses right away. Pulsing lightning is a very important upgrade anytime you're going for lightning impulse builds. Because it makes it where, as soon as one enemy dies, it inflicts any of the living... When one enemy dies, it inflicts the remaining enemies with an impulse of their own, so it's a good way of spreading the debuff around very quickly. But what I was going to say earlier is that if we go to the lightning tree and look at it, you have skill lightning and legacy lightning, and then you have attack lightning, thunderstorm, and skill lightning. These things are already named the exact same, despite one of them being lightning impulses, and then one of them being chain lightning. And now on top of that, there's also a red effect that's named almost the exact same thing. It's just named lightning orb. So then you have the orbiting lightning orbs, and you have the lightning orb red effect. It's not as bad on the red effects, but there's way too much in the lightning tree that is named too similarly for no reason. There's not too much of a difference between the shapeshifting, also gives the impulses a little bit extra range. The large pulses are bigger, but they deal a little bit less damage. So it's not a huge deal which one of the two you take. If you want more AoE damage, then you can take the large pulses. If you want more boss damage, you take the upgrade for it. Okay, cool. We'll get Pulsing Lightning right away. So now with the Pulsing Lightning upgrade, we'll kind of see a similar effect to last run, where once I start killing anything on the screen, a lot of things are just going to explode at once. The Lightning Impulses have always been a fun build to use. Or a fun tactic to use, I mean. They start off a little bit slower, but then once you get that third upgrade where the impulses can spread, it becomes a lot stronger. It also triggers the... I did not mean to use the skill there. It also triggers the red effect here, Lightning Orb. Even though it's spreading around through a passive effect, it's still applying the lightning, so it still applies the Lightning Orb. Ragna, some good stuff to pick up early on is the dash attack upgrades, where they can attack in a larger range. The invulnerability is nice, but you don't necessarily need it before the other upgrades. And then one I like is attack dealing more damage in a larger range. His attack is one of his best ways to deal damage and group together enemies early on before you get other potentials, I feel like. You can pretty much just chain jump attacks into themselves like this, and then pull all the enemies together in one group, and then either do whatever burst damage you want to do that way, or you can just keep spamming the jump attacks too. It's a very efficient way of attacking. If you want to get a little more fancy with it, you do this, and you do jump attack and then a single basic attack when you hit the ground. The basic attack comes out pretty much instantly, so I'm pretty sure it's higher DPS to do it that way, but maybe not. We can get into a heavy strike build. That'd be pretty nice as well. Ragna's one of the characters where you don't really have to go into any specific build like you have to do with other characters. As long as you get universal passives for Ragna, pretty much anything will deal damage. But I think the Dead Spike build is pretty fun. You want to be looking for the upgrades where you get the down attack version of it, and those will deal a very, very high amount of damage for a very quick startup time as well. Yeah, down attack is good as well. And now we can pick up Thunder and Lightning, which is going to be the main way that we're dealing some of our boss damage. This is a build I've shown off. It's been a while since I showed it off, but you run lightning impulses with attack lightning, and then what Thunder and Lightning does is that anytime you trigger this attack lightning, if they're debuffed with the lightning debuff, they'll take an impulse. So this allows you to get impulse damage even though you're in a boss fight and can't actually kill the boss. And then with Pulsing Lightning, the impulse will keep reapplying itself to the boss every time that Thunder and Lightning triggers. So you only have to worry about ever putting the debuff on the boss one time, unless it times out. It's a very strong build for characters like Lambda and Taukaka that can have very high hit count attack combos. Oh, wait. I haven't done that before. I knew there was ways to get up here, usually by, like, triple jump or stuff that, like, allows you to attack midair and gain height. But I've never clipped through the floor in that way. I guess streams really are the way of just finding new random bullshit in this game. So, Ragna's, when you do Ragna's down air, it actually does give you just a very small amount of height. So I'm able to clip through the floor here, that way. You can even do some weird tech with it if you really wanted to. I don't think that's too useful in any situation, though. This potential will make his dash attacks much more powerful, so if you see it early on, I recommend just picking it up during any run. And then Devoured by Darkness is also a great potential to look for if you're a little bit more scared about his health draining mechanic. This one has really efficient healing on it. Yeah, there's a couple places where if you don't have triple jump, then the down air movement boost will help you out, but it doesn't come up too often. This is going to be another case where the Lightning Orb red effect that we have isn't going to be doing a whole lot in boss fights. It will come out occasionally and trigger some extra damage, but it's not coming out often enough that enough of them are able to spawn to be able to DPS the boss. But that's where Thunder and Lightning comes into play. Thunder and Lightning is a good bossing tool if you're able to trigger it often enough. But one idea that you can do with the lightning orbs that we're getting here is that you can go into the setup before of running Lightning Orb Thunderbolt that I've ran in other builds. If you have these Lightning Orb Thunderbolts, the ones that are getting spawned by the red effect will also have their own Thunderbolts. What I'm going to be trying to do is going into Lightning Orb Thunder, so these will trigger Chain Lightning, which will also set off Thunder and Lightning as a red effect. I don't know why Thunder in particular just has so many different setups of things that you can turn into a chain reaction, but it does. And then for Ragna, I take additional HP spaces if I don't really have another good option to pick from. Compared to other characters, I don't really take HP spaces that often. But it's because the healing you get out of Ragna's healing mechanic system scales off of how much total HP you have. So the more HP you stack, the more you're going to heal. You do drain yourself for more HP than you would normally if you increase your HP as well, but overall it's a net positive. Because the draining works as a percentage, so once you get low on HP, you're not draining as much, even though you have increased the amount as you're draining. We can pick up the Legacy Pillars, even though they're not really going to be doing a whole lot in this build. I try to build making this work with the Electric Pillar links. So if I put down 2 Electric Pillars, then they have these extra Chain Lightning between them. It's not really high enough damage to really be worth it, though. And then I don't know if these Electric Pillar links can trigger Thunder and Lightning or not, but that was the idea. Which we can probably put together both of those things during this run as well. But I don't think this will come into play too often. I think I'm probably going to have to end the stream early today, too. I'll see if I can maybe finish out this run, but I'm just not feeling right today. I thought it was going to be good enough that I'd be able to stream today, but now that I've started streaming, it's getting worse, and I'm at a point where I'm really struggling to do my commentary right now and think of how to explain this stuff properly. So, like I said, I'll see if I can maybe finish out this run. My commentary is probably not going to be nearly as descriptive as it is usually, but I'll try to at least finish out this run before I go. But if it gets to the point of where I need to go immediately, then I just will. So unfortunately, it'll be a short stream for today. I had a lot of builds that I was looking forward to showing off today, but they'll have videos in the future of full runs with them, so I'll be able to show them off eventually. Yeah, I'll take care of myself. I was doing fine before the stream started, like it was kind of passing, and then I was doing fine for the first run of the stream, but it's just started acting up again. So who knows, maybe it'll pass by the end of the run again, or maybe it won't. We'll just play it by ear. Hopefully we don't have any conflicting slots here. I don't think we do. This goes to Summoner, so we'll be fine. So we need to pick up the Orbiting Lightning Orbs, and then we need to finish off the Chain Lightning Tree in order to get the other red effect that I want for this build. Yeah, don't worry, I'll rest after I finish this run. It's not too bad right now yet. It's just the main thing, like I said, is I noticed I was struggling to, like, describe things and think of things the way that I want to. I'm not too impressed with Electric Pillar Links as a tactic overall. The Shadow build that I did with it before is obviously extremely powerful, but aside from that, I haven't really been able to get anything put together with it that was too fun, and I've tried a lot of different builds with it. There's a lot of builds where, like, the pillars... This one, the pillars spawn electric links. There's builds where they spawn their own lightning orbs, and then you can power up the lightning orbs with either a fire red tactic to make them deal more damage, or you can do shadow orbs to make them spawn more. But even with all those builds, it doesn't feel too useful to me. Wow, look at... We got tactic damage again! This is really gonna hurt the amount of healing that I get off of Ragna, but it should be fine. So one of the issues that I have with the electric pillars, just kind of by design, is that a lot of the red effects, like this one that I have here, that has the electric links between them, and then the lightning orb one that I was talking about as well, requires 2 pillars to be put down, and they have to be in range of each other as well. So this means that if you ever want to use those red effects, you're either required to go for the Summon Radiance red effect that spawns 2 of them at once, or you're required to drop both of your legacy tactics at the exact same time. So not only is it kind of awkward to put both of your legacy tactics on cooldown at the same time, but you're always reliant on that exact same thing. You have to do that every time if you want to get any value out of your red tactic. Either that or you just have to run the Summon Radiance red tactic that spawns 2 pillars for you. And I think that's... It makes it weird that they didn't put in a skill version of the pillars. I said this before when I tested them out for the first time, but I feel like most things that have a legacy variant have a skill variant as well. And a skill variant of this would be pretty useful overall. But for some reason, this just does not have one at all. You have to run it in legacy slot. Hello, welcome to the stream. Also, one of the issues I talked about earlier has been happening throughout this entire run. You are barely ever seeing... one second. We are barely ever seeing Lightning Orb activate. Because anytime I hit something with Ragna's skill, it's just one-shotting them instead. They need to make it where the lightning somehow gets applied... or the lightning debuff somehow gets applied before they die, if this wants to have any chance of being a viable tactic. And then, I don't know, aside from that, there's still something weird going on with it. Because in boss fights, it should be triggering way more often. I know it has a cooldown, but the cooldown on it is very small. But it's just not happening even in boss fights too often. At the end of the first boss fight, there was only 2 active, despite how many times I had inflicted lightning on the boss. Because again, every time I hit an enemy that's inflicted with lightning, with the chain lightning, or I should say, anytime I hit an enemy that has lightning impulse debuff on them with chain lightning, they take a hit of the lightning impulse, and then from pulsing lightning, it applies another stack of lightning on them immediately. So with this constantly applying lightning, it should be spawning a lot of lightning orbs during the boss fights, and it's just not. I've had a couple instances where I've been playing through to test out the red effect, and sometimes in normal rooms I'll get a whole bunch of them to spawn and have like 5 to 10 of them on screen, but most of the time they just don't end up spawning at all. So here's the other red effect we wanted to throw into the build. Even though we might not be able to see it actually going off, this makes it where lightning orbs trigger their own version of attack lightning, which will also trigger thunder and lightning. And then they will activate off of this version of lightning orb as well that's getting summoned from the red effect. So in theory, how this build would work is that you apply lightning to a boss, and then through thunder and lightning, you're able to keep reapplying that lightning debuff, which is constantly spawning a bunch of lightning orbs, and then the lightning orbs would also trigger their own version of chain lightning, which would also set off thunder and lightning on its own. So maybe if everything worked properly, that should create an infinite loop. That's actually interesting to think about. Maybe they have done something with Thunder and Lightning on purpose. This happens with some other things as well, where they've created measures against creating any infinite loops with tactics in this game. There would be a couple ways that you could make infinite loops if they weren't in the game. So maybe that has to do with what's going on with boss fights here. He died really quickly. I think that a lot of that was just Ragna damage, but we'll maybe see at the next boss fight if I can deal any damage with just the lightning orbs. Oh, right, we also do have... We had 200% increased tactic damage, so that could have been a big reason of why the boss died so quick there. I think this is actually fine here. I don't really care about gold tactics that much, and we already have already have all the red tactics that we need. This does not disable any golden or red tactics that you already have, it just prevents you from getting new ones. So I think this is actually very worth it. This is really broken as a Covenant, especially if you're playing on high entropy where you have multiple refreshes to your shops. You can trigger this multiple times. Prime Member is also just an extremely broken Covenant if you have the money to spend with it. Oh yeah, you bring up another good point, that the electric pillars are also bugged right now. Sometimes they stop spawning. I mean, sometimes you'll use the legacy and they just won't spawn. And then, like, you'll use your second legacy and they do spawn for some reason. I think that has to do with maybe, like, they're not finding a valid location to spawn on the ground or something like that. And then there's a completely other bug where the legacy pillars will stop spawning entirely for the rest of your run. If you're getting the bug where they stop spawning for the rest of the run, all you need to do is quit to menu. You just pause, go back to main menu, and then you go back into the run, and they'll work again. Make sure you don't accidentally hit abort instead. I've done that on accident when trying to go back to menu at times. I could go into Dash Thunderbolt here just to finish it out with a full red tactic build. Actually, it is worth it. I was gonna say it's probably not worth it, but we can pick up... Never mind. So normally you could run this with Dash Thunderbolt and Seeker Thunderbolt, and you can get a full 5 red tactic build that way. But I just remembered that I can't pick up red tactics, so there's not a whole lot of purpose for me to go down Thunderbolt. I'll just focus on Ascensions if I get any more tactic spaces. I think I made a mistake putting this build on Ragna. His skill damage is just too high of a single hit damage to be able to spawn the lightning orbs. But I think that's something that they really need to fix, because you're gonna run into that often on a lot of different characters. No, you're definitely not the only one running into that bug. That bug actually happened to me very early on in the run, when I was on stream trying out the tactic for the first time, last time I streamed, and it was very annoying. Because I basically had no tactics for that run, because the main thing I was trying to go for was completely disabled and not working. The only way I can sort of get an orb to spawn is if I do my hold skill, since it's a bunch of multi-hits instead of just one-shotting them. But even when I get orb to spawn, it's not really doing a whole lot. It couldn't even figure out how to pass to that enemy correctly. That's actually pretty funny. They try to, like, lock on to enemies and home in on them, but it got stuck on the platform there, so it couldn't even attack the enemy. It just had, like, a little awkward stare down with them. But overall, I think this could be an extremely strong tactic setup. As soon as they fix the issue that if the enemy dies and on the hit that applies the lightning impulse, they don't spawn the lightning orb like they should. So here's the effect of the Covenant that I picked up earlier. When it happens, it simultaneously decreases all of the shop at once. So you basically just get an entire free selection of the shop. And then when you have refreshes from Legacy, or not Legacy, when you have refreshes from Entropy settings, this has a chance to apply on every single refresh. So the amount of value you get out of it ends up being really insane. I'll probably just sell back any other tactics that aren't ascensions for us. We'll just sell them back for a little bit of extra money. At this point, we might have more money than we know what to do with. Either way, though, I could probably use all this money if I go and spend on all three of the shops in Omega or Alpha Sector, though. You can burn through a lot of money there. And you don't really make a whole lot there either. Oh, she died extremely quickly. I think a lot of that's just due to the... Ragna has high damage on his own, and then the 200% tactic damage is also helping. Because we're also... We have the base lightning orbs themselves, and every time these are hitting, they're also triggering the chain lightning from lightning orb thunder, and they're also triggering thunder and lightning. So you could run like a... You could run a build with attack lightning, thunder and lightning, orbiting lightning orb, and lightning orb thunder. That would be very powerful as well. Assuming they ever bug fix the stuff with lightning orbs, they'll be very powerful in this build, I feel like. But I don't know how high of faith I have on them actually fixing it. Because there have been issues with other tactics and other things in the game that I've tried reporting in the past, and I've never seen any of the things I've reported actually get fixed, unfortunately. The developers are Chinese, so I don't think a lot of the feedback from the English side gets sent over to them, but I'm surprised that some of the things that I've reported wouldn't have been reported by them either, though. So it's hard to say what's going on without having any good communication with the actual development team. I guess I could always pick up Holy Mark and Stable Mark. That's never a bad thing to pick up if you just have a random dash slot you need to fill out. I don't... whatever, we'll pick it up. I probably won't be getting a second tactic, but it just depends on the shop luck. What we do through the rest of this run doesn't really matter either way. We're more than powerful enough to finish the run. So I'll probably just go into this boss fight and maybe the other one. And then I'm hoping that'll open up the other shops, but I don't know if it will. We'll see. I don't want to full clear all the normal rooms right now. I just want to get these shops and maybe the extra 2 potentials from the boss fights here. And then I'll go into Reki and then hopefully Susano after that. In case, unless something goes catastrophic in Reki. Which it easily could if I drain my HP at a bad time. Right now I have to play it pretty safe as well, because I'm low on HP from draining myself. But as long as you play it patiently and wait out the bosses for their stun, it's not too difficult to deal with this boss fight. At least on regular Entropy. On Transcendence, that boss fight gets so much more difficult. Even though we have the discount here, I think I'm going to save a little bit of extra money by not buying things like Tactic Ascensions. It just depends on... If I'm seeing a lot of potentials that aren't on discount, I can burn through the money very quickly. And then also, buying the refreshes also adds up in cost. So I actually might not have enough money to refresh the next shop entirely. Trying to budget your exchange points for the high amount of shop refreshes you get on high entropy is something that's difficult to do. Oh wow, she's already at half HP. There is a way that I can jump up to her and get high enough to damage her, but I don't have the potential that I need for it, unfortunately. It's also just very difficult to do. I don't think it's something I can pull off consistently. I showed it in one of my videos, but if you didn't watch that, what I'm talking about is when non-Firebite goes into her laser phase, she's actually not removed from the game, she's just very high off-screen. So if you have a way to reset your aerial attack limit, you can do things like Ragna's up air a bunch of times, and then jump, and then do it 3 more times, and you can get enough height to where you can actually go up and attack non-Firebite in midair. And then also some moves, like Kokonoe's down plus skill lasers, just have enough height to hit her, even though she's off-screen. Rachel's base skill for the lightning can do the same thing. You just stand in the middle of the stage, and you spam down your skills. And if you deal enough damage to her while she's up in midair, you'll actually be able to stun her and cancel the phase. There's even an achievement for doing it. It's just an in-game achievement, I think. I don't think it's a Steam one. But I don't pay too much attention to Steam achievements. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea to take an extra HP stage or 2, but I'll just go through Reki, see if I can either end out the run, or if I die, I die. That was weird. I got some, like, weird momentum on my up attack there. Oh, the tactics are actually doing quite a lot of damage. I'll see if I can maybe... It'd be easier to show them off against Susano than Reki. But they are doing good damage whenever I'm able to stand near an enemy and constantly proc the lightning impulses. A lot of that is just due to having a 200% damage modifier, though, from... I think it was Black Market. I'll double check, though. See, like now, I just have 3 lightning orbs spawned randomly. Now there's 4, now there's 5. Now the tactic is just suddenly working well. So why was it not working the other times? It seems very inconsistent. Sometimes I just randomly get a bunch of them to come out properly and work, and then other times they just don't show up at all. So this is, it's really high damage for tactics. There's no mistaking that, but I think most of that is just coming from the damage multiplier. Oh, that's not good. Yeah, one of the things I've tried running this with is I've tried running it with the Shadow Orbs, I've tried running it with there's a burning red tactic. The problem is this tactic is just not applying properly most of the time. One of the issues that I've noticed is that if I one-shot an enemy with the skill while trying to apply the impulses, they die before the impulse goes off. Or they die before the impulse debuff gets put on them, it seems like, and they just don't spawn orbs. So for 90% of that run, I wasn't spawning any orbs during the normal rooms. And then, they're not really working in boss fights either. I'm not sure exactly why. Because it seems like they work very inconsistently in the boss fights. During the Reki fight they worked great, but then the other boss fights they just weren't working. You can see right there, even. I hit him with a skill, he got the debuff applied. Why did... It spawned an orb there, and now it's just working again. Wait a minute. I think the... It's hard to tell if the skill description is wrong or not. But... It's working now. It has a cooldown on it, so something like Tempest Dahlia wouldn't proc it a bunch of times. Which, I know it has the cooldown on it, but even then... In most of the boss fights, I just wasn't getting any to spawn, or I'd have like 1 or 2 by the end of the boss fights. It wasn't working like it just worked there, where they were actually constantly spawning properly. So with this setup, what happens is that we get the lightning orbs to spawn every time the lightning impulse happens, and then the lightning orbs that get spawned are creating lightning orb or lightning orb thunder, which is they're creating lightning chains on their own, and then every time a lightning chain hits an enemy that are inflicted with the impulse debuffs, they take an impulse. And then the impulse gets reapplied by pulsing lightning. So this is it should be an entire loop. Once the first lightning debuff is applied, it'll create lightning orbs, which will create the lightning chains, which will then automatically apply more impulses back onto the enemy. So I should only have to apply lightning once, and then it should work forever for the rest of the boss fight. But yeah, okay, I think I see what you're saying now. Sometimes it feels like there's a delay between when the debuff is applied and then when the orbs spawn. But you can see it here. He's been hit by a couple of, I think he got hit by like 2 impulses there where lightning orbs just weren't spawning. Actually, no. The lightning orbs are spawning, it's just they're spawning behind his model, so I'm not seeing them. But they have to be spawning because you can see that the impulses are still going off. So maybe they were working properly in the boss fights. It's just, for one, the lightning orbs are spawning behind the boss's model, so they're getting hidden. And I bet a lot of the character effects were also drowning them out. But there's still the issue of, in normal enemy rooms, one-shotting them doesn't produce orbs. I know that part is actually true. But it looks like for boss fights this loop does actually work correctly, now that I'm able to look at it without having to worry about dying in the boss fight or using my character moves. It's not very strong, though, all things considered. So if you wanted to make the build stronger, you would probably... You'd probably want to inherit either the shadow orbs or the fire orbs. And then you could still run the lightning setup with attack lightning, because you'd still want thunder and lightning to spawn as many of them as possible in boss fights. But instead of having lightning orb thunder to make it self-perpetuate, you would run either the shadow orbs or the light or the fire orbs in order to actually give them more damage. Still don't think that's going to be enough, though, to make the build do enough damage compared to other tactic DPS builds. I think it's a fun build regardless, though, either way. And I think if they fix the issue with normal enemies, it'll be quite strong in the normal rooms. So what I was saying is you would inherit Shadow Lightning Orb, because that goes on the Summoner slot, or you could inherit Lightning Orb Shot. This gives them an additional 400 damage. I don't know off the top of my head. I think I'd have to calculate everything at gold rank and account for this damage modifier. Whether Lightning Orb Shot would give you more damage, or if Shadow Orbs would. But you could run either one of them. You could also run Electric Pillars with the build, and you could take this. That will summon some more Electric Pillars, or it'll summon more orbs for you, instead of the one that I inherited. Actually, yeah, I shouldn't have inherited that. The build would have ended up being better if I didn't inherit it, but I don't think it would have made that drastic of a difference. The build isn't terrible, though. Especially since this is just a free infinite loop that you get throughout the entire boss fight, regardless of what your character is doing. It's not terrible, but it's just not high DPS. There are many other tactic builds that can fully DPS boss fights for you. Okay. I don't know where that came from, but I just pulled like a combo video shit out of my ass there. Alright, so unfortunately I'm not feeling the best today, and I'm gonna have to cut the stream off early. I wish I would have had time to show off more builds, but I'm glad we got to at least show off a couple of them, and then I'll be putting out videos over the next week that showcase some new builds. So those will be coming soon as a video instead of a stream. So thank you guys for showing up to the stream and watching or chatting. It was fun to talk with you guys even just for a little bit.